Hi, Gary. Come in. Could have made an effort with your outfit.
These are my best clothes. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. To you, he's a former financial trader who predicted the 2008 economic crash. Growing up working class, he worked his way up to be one of the most successful traders of his time. He's an economist known for his activism and analysis on the current climate, speaking up for economic inequality. He's got a hugely successful YouTube channel, Gary's Economics, where he breaks down and explains what's really happening. He's also the author of best-selling memoir, The Trading Game. He is, in short, the people's economist. But to me, he's the good at maths mate I wish I'd had at school, because I've actually got dyscalculia, which I quite like because it sounds like Count Dracula. It's Gary Stevenson.
Thank you.
So, Gary, how do you make money now you're not at the bank?
Good question. The truth is, having been somewhat obsessed with money until the age of 26, 27, I haven't really tried to make money in particular for the last 11, 12 years, really.
Really? What's your relationship with it now, do you think? Do you love and hate it?
That's a good question. I think if you ask my friends, they would sound quite tight, and they would say...
Rich people always are tight, though, aren't they? It's part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't...
That's how you stay rich.
You know, it was weird, right? Because I came from a very poor background. Then when I was 12, 13, I started doing a paper round, £13 a week. Then when I was 16, 17, I started working at DFS, the sofa shop, for £40 a day on like weekends. So it was really, really not much. And it was that kind of, you know, you'd skip lunch to save money, this kind of thing. And that was my mentality, you know, and I never really went to restaurants, never really went to shops. Everything was sort of hand me down. But then obviously I got this job as a trader for Citibank. I won this job in a competition in a card game, and I got a job at Citibank, which I started in 2008, so when I was 21. And then in my first year, I got paid just under £400,000, which was...
Blew your mind.
I had not been expecting that at all. I'd been expecting to get paid like £100,000, which in itself would have been
Lovely.
like a huge amount.
Yeah.
And it was kind of crazy to have gone from this childhood of just like skipping everything, buying the cheapest of everything, and then suddenly you're getting paid £400,000, and you go into the supermarket and you still have this instinct, which is, I need to buy the cheapest thing, and the cheapest thing is like 30 pence less. It kind of made it feel a little bit like horrific in a way to have been made to live this childhood where you're scrimping and saving for pennies. And it wasn't just me, you know, I grew up in a poor area, and especially like my primary school, I went to school with a lot of poor kids. And then suddenly you get £400,000 dropped on you. And then I would just go to the supermarket and I wouldn't even look at the prices, because it was kind
just
of
put
irrelevant.
Whatever you want in the
just
trolley.
put whatever I want in the trolley, right? And
that to me has been the thing that's the most like life-changing thing is putting what you want in the trolley. And anybody ever asks me like, what defines success for you? That's one of the things that I say, that is being able to go around the supermarket and put whatever you actually want in it rather than what you can have or whatever.
Do you know what I think the big thing is for me? The big thing for me is not having to worry about losing things or things breaking. Because I remember when I was a kid, and I remember once I was probably like 7 or 8, we went on a school trip to the beach. I was wearing plimsolls. I had one pair of school shoes and one pair of like plimsolls you wear for PE, right?
With
you know
the
what
elastic.
Yeah,
like
the little
that.
black ones with the little elastic.
From
Yeah.
Woolworths, I had.
And I took my plimsolls off and I ran into the sea, and you're playing in the sea, right? As you do when you're a kid. And then when I come out, the plimsolls were gone. So I guess the sea, I must have put them too close to the sea or whatever. And then that was it. I didn't have no plimsolls for like a year and a half, and you're wearing your school shoes to play football, you're wearing your school shoes for PE. And I think that was the thing. And I would work, you know, I would save up this £1 a week pocket money, or this £12 a week for the paper round money for 10 weeks to buy a pair of TNs, Nike TNs, these train. And then
I know what they are, because I love them as well.
And you know, like
Same
if you,
generation.
you know, if I lose, it's this, I think this thing which people who've never been poor don't perhaps understand or recognize, is this terror you have of knowing if I lose a thing or if a thing breaks, I can't replace it, I can't fix it. And it's just gone. And I'm going to have to make do without it. I think that is the big thing, which was nice about making money.
Yeah.
But if you go through the book, it's kind of the story of the more money I made, like the more I kind of lost my mind.
How did that manifest the madness? Because we're in mad now.
Okay.
Tell me about, did you go mad?
So I think this first bonus I got, and I had not all been expecting it to be that much money. I'd been kind of led to believe it was going to be about £100,000, 120, something like that. And then I get paid this 400 grand. And then that's when I think I kind of entered this, I suppose, like an obsession phase. I think of it as an obsession phase of my life, really, where I was basically just obsessed with being the best trader.
And you did achieve that, right?
Yeah, I did.
And what madness came with it?
I'd always wanted, or I always thought that I wanted to become rich. But really, I didn't really know what being rich was.
Well, it feels an impossible dream when you're young anyway. So you say it, don't you? You'll think it, but you don't in reality know what comes with it.
Yeah, I had this idea that I was working towards something. I had this, I was very driven, very, very competitive as a kid. And I didn't expect to make as much money as I did make so young. But then when the money came in, I think part of me realized that I didn't actually want anything. It was an idea I was chasing in a way. And I started dating a girl, and one of the first things she said was like, you know, why don't you fucking quit that job? You hate it. Why don't you
you're not
quit?
happy.
And up until then, no one had ever said anything like that to me, because obviously I was known amongst like my friends and family and people back in Ilford as like, oh, he's so successful. Nobody ever even suggested like,
you might step away from it or whatever.
Nobody, like, it never occurred to me or anyone around me that I might hate my job. Yeah. Because everybody just thought, well, he's getting paid like more than £1 million a year.
And that's the only thing that matters or whatever.
Yeah, and then this girl came into my life and she was like, why don't you hate that job? Why don't you quit that job? You hate it. And I was like, well, it kind of shocked me. And also, she kind of didn't give a shit about this money that I was making. Yeah. And I think in a way that kind of started to put these cracks in these ideas that I had, which is like, I'm going to make loads of money and then I'm going to be happy. I think, I think lots and lots of people have this idea, which is quite simplistic, which is I'm going to make a load of money and then I'm going to be happy.
Yeah.
But I did make a load of money and I wasn't happy. And I guess that kind of started a kind of like a crisis of meaning in a way.
Because you said in your book that you had a breakdown, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't use the term breakdown, but yeah, it was kind of a breakdown. It was a burnout. It was definitely, I was diagnosed with situational depression. And it was definitely, in hindsight, a depression, a burnout. But the funny thing about that was, I moved to Japan in 2012. Like it was a work transfer. And I tried to quit after I'd only been there for not even 6 months. And the opening scene of my book is like my direct manager, this like massive American banker, basically telling me, if you quit, we're gonna find some shit on you, we're gonna sue you. And he literally says to me, I like you, I think you're a good person, but sometimes bad things happen to good people. And it put me in a situation.
It's so threatening.
Well, yeah, it was. And it was this weird thing because obviously, like, this is like one of the biggest corporations in the entire world. And, you know, a senior manager is basically saying, we're going to find something, we're going to sue you. So it put me in this mad situation where it was kind of...
is there stuff on you that they could find?
Well, they never did sue me, so I assume that there isn't.
Bad.
Well, he was saying, he kind of gave me this kind of hypothetical situation about this other guy. And they said, you know, he hadn't really done anything, but, you know, because they have so much data on you. He was like, we looked through all of his emails and we looked through all of his phone calls and we looked through all of his chats and we looked through all of his messages, and there wasn't really anything there, but we could put something together. So he was making it kind of clear that they didn't really
need to have anything.
Yeah. So obviously I went home and like, you know, like threw up in the toilet, you know, and then I was like, you know, what the fuck am I going to do? And I stayed up all night, couldn't sleep. And I made this plan, which was, I'm going to go to the doctor and I'm going to tell him like my boss is threatening me and I'm going to ask for sick leave. Because at the time I was in Japan, and Japan has this really bad problem of suicides of workers because they're getting like harassed by their bosses, like just literally just sudden death of workers because they're working so hard that they just suddenly die. They have a word for it in Japanese. Because there's so much social pressure on workers to work really, really hard.
Yeah.
So because of that, they have really good legal protections for people who have requested sick leave for stress. So I was kind of, in a way, I requested sick leave for stress as a way of protecting myself against Citibank. But the truth is, like, my mental health was fucking terrible. I was down to about 8 stone. Yeah, like super. I was down. I could barely eat. I was getting this like unbelievably painful like heartburn. If I didn't eat for a few hours, it would start really being painful. So the thing is, you look back now, and I obviously was like super stressed and in a really bad mental health situation. But I thought, and almost everybody around me thought, that I was applying for sick leave
to get off that,
to protect myself from the bank. And I think even at the time, I genuinely wasn't sure whether I was sick or whether I was pretending to be sick to protect myself from the bank. It's only now looking back that you can be like, you can look and
objectively
be like,
and go,
yeah, but
I
the
wasn't
thing is,
well.
my whole life was like that. So like I had this
But
flat.
I think depression's like that anyway, because I've had depression, postpartum psychosis, all these things, and it's not until you're out of them that you go, oh, I was ill. But in the moment, you're like, this is my reality.
I see it so much now because, you know, I studied economics at LSE and I studied economics at Oxford. So I've studied with a lot of, you know, high performing economists. A lot of them go into banking, and a lot of them do end up with stress related health problems. And what I've found in general is, when I've tried to tell people who are working in these very high pressure industries and are very stressed that they might be stressed, they react super defensively. Like, what do you mean? I'm not stressed. I'm fine. I'm totally fine. Everyone's stressed. It's a difficult job. And it's a high, you know, I'm not stressed. And it's this, they can't be stressed because they're too stressed to be stressed. Yeah. Don't tell them they're stressed. They haven't got time to be stressed right now. Like, because it's normalized. And I think this is not just in banking. Like even
just in industry
like,
at all.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the high paying industries like law, like even like things like recruitment. But to be honest, even things like teaching, the stress load that we put on teachers, which is not a spectacularly high paid profession. I think we've kind of moved into this more kind of American style culture.
Stress is cultural.
Yeah,
anyway.
We've moved into this idea that you have to be working 120% all the time, otherwise you're a failure.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're a loser. And then we wonder why there's a mental health epidemic amongst young people. There's the quote at the beginning of my book is from a Japanese film director, Akira Kurosawa, saying, "In a mad world, only the mad are sane." I don't want to tell people, you know, don't try and beat whatever mental illness you might have. But I think, especially those of us who are fortunate to not have to worry about paying the bills every day, when are we going to step back and look at the kind of game we've put on the plate for these guys? Life is so hostile for young people. Life is so hostile for young people. It's so difficult even to achieve like some of the most basic things, like being able to feed your family, being able to buy a house, being able to have financial security for your kids. And then to turn around and say it's because you don't work hard enough or because
it's your fault even.
Yeah, I think that's really, that really leaves a bit of taste.
So you talk about having depression, and which is essentially sadness.
Yeah.
Do you think as a person you've learned to like be in touch with your own feelings? Like, do you cry easily? Is it difficult for you?
I very rarely cry in front of anyone, I think, which is common for a lot of men.
You're a private crier.
I mean, I take a lot on myself, especially sometimes.
You think you're naturally hyper responsible?
Well, I mean, it's mad now because at the end of the day, in my heart of hearts, I'm a trader and I look at the economy and I make predictions. And I think this is going to get worse. I'm working really hard every day to try and prevent that, try and stop things from getting worse. But I do think things will get worse. And it's not, it's not for people like me that it will get worse. I'll be fine. I'll be protected. I don't do what I do for me. And I work, especially the last few months, I've been working really hard, too hard to be honest. And then when you do that and you get attacked in the papers and you get all people saying all kinds of shit about you.
Well, people want to bring you down if you're powerful or if you might be damaging to a system that makes them feel safe. So inevitably they'll come for you because that's what they do to protect themselves.
I think sometimes I'm able to step back from it and view it as a game. And that's another big thing, is I make everything into a game.
That's called disassociation.
Okay, well, that makes it sound much less healthy.
But it's like, it's quite common amongst people who have been traumatized in a way to like, because I have the same thing where I would sit out of my body and then I view it from the outside and I go, oh, it's a game. Because it makes it easier almost to, like, otherwise you might shut down.
Yeah, I think this is a big theme in the book. In my book, there's a real kind of there's a switch, which is the beginning of section 5 of the book, which is the Japan section. And the opening line of that section is, Tokyo is a wonderful place to be depressed, especially in the autumn. And for me, that whole last section of the book is supposed to be really about depression. What a depression is like, or at least what a depression was like for me, which was that I didn't really feel sad. For me, it wasn't a feeling of sadness. It was like a feeling of just not caring about anything. And I just...
bit numb.
Yeah, numbness, not really being able to enjoy anything. Like this, I didn't have any furniture in my flat. And the girl I was seeing at the time, she came around and she was like, how can you live like this?
Student.
Yeah. And I just laughed at it. I just thought it was funny. You know what I mean? But it's that kind of thing, like not caring if you sleep, not caring if you eat, this kind of numbness, separation from the world.
And I actually think, like, when you say it's going to get worse, like, I remember growing up, there was loads of homeless people on the street and people slept on the street a lot more as a kid. And then it kind of started to improve and I can start to see it a bit more again. And I think it is getting worse. And you think about all this stuff at the moment, like with things like this, the benefits being cut for disability and universal credit. And it was funny because I was trying to get some people to come on this show to talk to you that I know who are on PIP, disability benefit and universal credit, and no one would come on because they were too scared to be on this podcast to be seen, because they think they're all scared of getting their benefits taken away. Like, and there's loads of things, like people call, for example, people talk about things like food banks as part of the state system, but it's not. It's a consequence of a failing state system. So it's not fair to say, oh, it's part of our brilliant state system. We've got food banks. We shouldn't have food banks and all of that. So I feel you on that. I think that's super sad. And I don't know how the distribution of wealth can improve other than, like you say, to tax the super rich, because it would solve it so quickly.
It's not easy to solve. What I worry about and why I do the work that I do is...
Do you want to just say what work you mean when you say...
Yeah, so,
obviously you've written a book, but you do you do some quite practical things as well, don't you?
If you talk about back 30, 40, 50 years ago, the UK government, not just the UK government, like most Western governments, they owned, most obviously, a ton of housing stock. They owned tons of houses, right? But they also owned lots of other things, and they didn't have enormous amounts of debt. So when I talk about wealth, this is not about your income. This is about what you own. It's about who basically owns the physical assets of the country. And if you go back 30, 40, 50 years ago, you have a world, at least in the West, you have a country here in the UK where the government owns a lot, has a lot of housing, is not massively in debt. Ordinary working class families own not a lot, but they have a bit. Families like my family, families like your mum's family, by the way it sounds, end up being able to own their own homes. So you have...
what do you think that does to someone's psychology? Like, we go, yeah, it's really great to own a home, but actually, like, do you think that what would be the repercussions of someone having that stability to know that whatever happens, whatever money they lose, they've got a roof over their heads? And also, in my mum's case, she keeps going on about it, something to leave their kids, because it feels like something, I'm giving you something, a chance, an opportunity, whatever it is.
Well, I'm not a psychologist, but you can imagine this is going to make people feel a lot calmer. I think it's crazy that we have this massively growing mental health crisis, alongside these economic changes, like ordinary people not being able to own property, not being able to have that financial security. And so few people are saying, well, it's the lack of economic security that has caused the mental health crisis. I'm not an expert on phones and apps. I'm sure these have their consequences. But if you know,
often,
if you know that working an ordinary job will give you the ability to raise a family in dignity, that's a hell of a good thing to know.
Yeah. So moving on to bad, do you think there's such a thing as good and bad, or a hero or villain?
Oh, it's a good question. I had a rule for myself when I wrote my book, which is that I didn't want any character to be 100% good or any character to be 100% bad. I wanted to try my best to show you these people as they really are, which is that everyone has got good and bad in them. I think I don't like to believe that there is such a thing as like someone who's just born bad and they're bad and
we condemn them to that.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any such thing as a person who's like totally good. I think when I do the work that I do, people sometimes be like, oh, he thinks he's such a saint, I don't think I'm such a saint. I think, it's funny, when I wrote this book, so my sister works in creative writing, and we were thinking about doing something about sort of my story or whatever. And I decided to write this book, and we went out for a meal and sat down and I told her I was writing the book. And she said, if you're going to write the book, you're going to have to make yourself a dickhead in the book. Mm-hmm. And it was funny because I'd already been thinking the same thing. I felt like the book would be better. The book would be more interesting. The main character would be deeper if we really brought out like the dickheadishness of this guy. Because...
But do you think that to bring it out, this guy, which is you, do you think that you are capable of being a dickhead?
Yeah, 100. I think you read the book. I mean, it was really interesting. You write a book, you start realizing you realize how much like freedom you have in the way you create and portray characters, even when that person is really not telling the truth.
So when we talk about all those people who hoarding all of that money, I think a bad quality would be selfishness. Do you think it's a natural animal instinct to just keep what's yours? I think,
in my opinion, it is 100% human to be selfish, but I think it is also 100% human to care about the people around you. I don't think it's one or the other. I think, of course, at the end of the day, you are the person who's responsible for taking care of yourself. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean that you don't care about people around you as well. So I studied economics, and in economics, you really have this idea that like everyone is selfish, but they're just selfish. They only care about like just
everyone's
themselves.
Multiple.
Yeah. So I was really raised. If you'd have asked me when I was 15, 17, 20, like, does altruism exist? I would have been like, no, altruism doesn't. And a lot of people believe altruism doesn't exist. They think like, okay, sometimes people do things for other people, but it's because they want to get a reward or they want to feel good about themselves. The actual reasons are selfish. And this was really an idea that I grew up with. But then I moved to Japan. What you see when you live in Japan is like really, really dramatically different societal, cultural attitudes towards like selfishness. And there's a really, really strong expectation that you really, really care and take an interest in and make sure they're okay, all of the people around you. In Japanese, they call it kuki or yomu, which means like to read the air. And when I first moved to Japan, I actually found it like really like kind of invasive, like almost claustrophobic, because you start realizing like people are really paying attention to me. Like it will be like, they'll just try and make sure you sit in the right seat in the taxi or in the restaurant, and they'll be like, are you too hot? Are you too cold? Do you need this? Do you need that? And I was like, guys, just like leave me alone. Because I wasn't really used to people like really worrying about me. But I tried to quit my job in Japan and I couldn't. And I ended up kind of just like wandering around, cycling around Tokyo for like a year and a half because I wasn't working and I couldn't quit. And I really got to learn Japanese and I got to understand the culture. And there was this one time, so karaoke is massive in Japan. Yeah. You've been to Japan. Did you do karaoke?
Karaoke is my favourite thing to do in general.
Doesn't surprise me.
But I like to sing badly in karaoke.
Well, that is a good point. So
nice
I am actually not a bad singer. Say so myself. But I hated
Feature.
karaoke in Japan. Hated it because you know, they'd be like, "Oh, you're English, go sing Wonderwall," and I'd be like very self-conscious and go up there. And one time I was at this karaoke with a bunch of like some Japanese, some non-Japanese, and I sang my Wonderwall and I was just looking like I hated it. And this old Japanese man, his name was Hiroshi, he said, "Come sit next to me." And he said to me, "What you need to understand about karaoke is it doesn't matter whether you sing well or sing badly. What matters is your guests have a good time." And I didn't really realize that I'd been going in with this like quite stupid, quite selfish, quite English, quite Western mentality, which is I'm supposed to sing well and I'm getting self-conscious. And then they were like, "No, what you want to do is you want to make everyone else have a good time." And then I kind of changed the way that I approached karaoke, and I would try to make a bit of a joke of it and try to make everybody else enjoy it. And what I found was when I started focusing on making the other people around me enjoy it more, I also enjoyed it much more. And I kind of felt that like this, I'd being raised in this like get rich or die trying culture, I'd kind of allowed myself to believe that in life, you have a choice between do you take care of yourself or do you worry about other people? And you have to take care of yourselves because no one is going to take care of you. And then from my time in Japan, I realized that I think really, personally, I think that makes us smaller as humans to think that you can only be all for me or nothing for me. I think that we have the capacity as humans to both be selfish and care for ourselves. And I think that you have to do that. If you don't care about look after you, who's going to look after you? And also care for others, you know. I think that we've really made people smaller by convincing them that they have to be selfish. I think, and that means that they can't give as well. I think like 100%, you can do both. You should do both. And I know that there are a lot of people in this world who are in a situation where they don't have much to give, but even often they find space to give. I think that makes us bigger.
Those often are the most generous people in my experience. Like they'll give you the last thing they've got. Yeah. Usually.
Yeah.
This is amazing. It's been so wonderful talking to you, inspiring also. And I'd like to know that in amongst all of the sort of hard things in the world, and God knows right now it's the worst I think our generation's ever seen in reality, politically and everything. What makes you feel glad in amongst all of those negative things?
Well, it's funny, we were speaking about how it's often the poorest who give the most. And I remember I got sent up by this group that I work with called Patriotic Millionaires. They sent me up to a town called Colburn, which is in North Yorkshire, which is in Rishi Sunak's constituency. And they wanted me to go up there, go to a food bank and ask the food bank users how they felt about having Britain's richest ever MP as their local MP. So I took the train up to North Yorkshire, get to Colburn, get to this food bank. And totally coincidentally, that happened to be just a few days after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And I get to this food bank, and basically the food bank had been converted into like a donation center. So I'm just there like packing things into boxes like everybody else. And I'm talking to the other people and I'm asking them, how did you like find out that this was happening here today? And they were like, "Oh, well, we usually come here. It's usually a food bank and we usually come here like to get our food." You know, these are some of the poorest people in the country. These are people who struggle to feed their families, right? And at a time when a war has been declared, I don't know, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, however far away Ukraine is, thousands of miles away, these guys, some of the poorest people in the country, they take their time to go to the food bank and to pack stuff into boxes to drive to Ukraine. And I guess that made me realize, I think sometimes it's easy to shit on the country, you know, there's a lot of bad stuff happening. Yeah. There are good people out there. There are good people out there that are willing to support good things and they want to support good things. And I think it's the responsibility of those of us who have the time and the space and the resources to give them those good things to support. And I think if we build it...
That does make me feel glad. I agree. Also, I think at the moment, the problems in politics is because people don't fully communicate they don't really know what they voted for.
Yeah.
And when you really like go into those situations, which I've done a lot of and do a lot of, because I believe in community, I think you realise that everyone's, like, the greater idea, the ideals, what makes us the same is so apparent. And the fact that everyone really does just essentially want the same thing. It's just that people's power has been diminished and diminished and diminished by feeling powerless. But if we asked everybody really collectively what they wanted the world to be like, I don't think we'd be in the political situation we're in. I think it's just not, it's not coming across. Politicians aren't really communicating properly.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of division nowadays. I think it's easy to see, hard to avoid probably. And I think sometimes...
But scapegoat,
but I think sometimes that division is intentionally sent out there by people who should know better, people who think they can benefit from it.
My friend was telling me the other day as well about this gardener. She met a gardener in a public park. And when the whole Ukraine thing happened, he just quietly in the public park just planted loads of blue and yellow flowers. But he didn't tell anybody what he was doing. It just, that was that. So then when it came out in bloom, he was like, I did my little bit.
Yeah.
I just think that's so nice.
I think
that people do that and thinking about stuff.
It's like Frank Ocean says, we all try. I think everyone out there, people are standing there ready to support a movement that wants to make things better. But they just don't see that person. They don't see that person doing that. So
thanks
I would
for
encourage,
being one of them.
Yeah, I would encourage everyone, you know, we can all be that person for our friends, for our families, for our communities. We can try and paint the example of a better direction we can go in and push other people to go that way as well.
Thank you, Gary.
That's okay.
It's so good. Thanks so much for coming on. I still none the wiser, but...
You'll figure it out. Just read the book twice.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Gary. Bye. Oh my God, I don't know what to invest in still.